Welcome to the second of the Jiu Jitsu Oracle's ACCC review shows, where we're going to get into the male and female weight classes. I'm Ross. I'm joined as always by Calum. And to kick things off, let's talk about Felipe Pena winning the over 99 division. Over to you.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 wins in that division came by submission, I think. Won against Josh Saunders via penalties. Looked like it was quite difficult to do anything against Josh. He was being not cagey, but wasn't really progressing too much, and he's also a really big guy and good at jiu-jitsu. So aside from that, though, he got the sub in all of his other matches. In the final against Luke, just looks like killer instinct to get that done. Hit the double leg, got to the back, rear naked choke in a match that he was having a tough time with earlier on. So very impressive from Felipe, and happy to see him get another ACCC gold in his trophy cabinet for the first time in a few years.
I thought Felipe's all-round game was awesome, and we saw all aspects of jiu-jitsu played. We saw him able to use wrestling to score takedowns. We saw some play from him on top. His guard, as always, was exceptional. He's immense at entering 50-50 and bear traps as well. From a defensive point of view, his framing's really, really good. It's nice to see someone at the heavier weight class have a guard like that and employ it and use it to their advantage. So I thought all around this was the best Felipe we've seen in a couple of years. He looked physically, athletically on point, ready for the challenge. And I think he was a deserved winner. Before the event, then there's a lot of talk about Luke Griffith. And I wondered in the final whether Luke's young athleticism might be too much for Felipe, but absolutely not. And Felipe dealt with him really, really well in the final. So yeah, just extremely impressed with Felipe this weekend. What did you think of Luke? I thought his wrestling to back takes was something to take note of. I think he looked really, really good with that. So I think there's definitely a future ACCC title in Luke, but he was just beaten by the better man on this occasion. But what did you think about Luke and anyone else in the division that you want to highlight?
Yeah, Luke looked great. I definitely agree with that he has the potential to win ACCC in the future. Quite surprising that he only decided to do over 99 fairly recently, because he looked huge for that division. There's obviously a lot of big guys in that division, but he was very big as well as carrying the weight well and looking very athletic, as well as having a great game for that division, like you say. Good wrestling and taking the back off of that. Still seen him be relatively inconsistent in some of his performances, so I'm sure another couple of years training with the guys he trains with, he should iron that out a bit, and then could definitely see him being a big nightmare for everyone in that division.
Okay, and anyone else you want to highlight? I thought Josh Saunders was really, really good.
Yeah, he surprised me. He had a good run. Came fourth, and then the guy that beat him for that bronze medal match, Big Dan, he had a good little run as well.
Yeah. So, under 99 kilo, very much the Kaynan Duarte show. Do you want to talk us through Kaynan's performances?
Yeah, so Kaynan went 4 for 4 for subs in this division. Couple guillotines as well. That became somewhat of a signature move for him. Looked great. Very solid performance. Good strength of schedule with the guys he had to compete against. I thought that when Merigali got put out on the other side of the bracket, it was his division to lose. I kind of thought Kaynan would most likely have it in the bag at that point. But yeah, great performance from him. And then I think the biggest upset of ACCC, and probably the whole weekend, you could argue Victor Hugo as well, but I think the biggest upset was Merigali losing in the second round. He did get injured, but he still got submitted with that Darce. So yeah, that was probably the biggest upset of the whole weekend, I think, for them.
Okay, I might come back and talk about Merigali in a minute, but I just want to stick with Kaynan for just now. So, the guillotine, something I think we used to see Kaynan utilise a lot more in years gone by, and we've maybe seen a bit less on him using that as a submission to score victories in more recent times. But yeah, we talked about on our CGI review where we were mentioning Andrew Tackett and how he doesn't have like a banker submission right now, and we thought if he could add that to his game, he's basically got everything else. But I think that guillotine's back in the mix for Kaynan, just being like an awesome submission that he can hit from anywhere and end a match.
Sorry, my dog's moving my phone right now. I'm going to move it away from it. There you go.
Another tool that Kaynan and Felipe Pena both used very well was the running double leg. And it just shows that like your wrestling doesn't have to be that elaborate, but just that basic takedown worked really, really well for them. Kaynan's measured guard passing, his maintenance on top to retain a safe HQ position, but while he can also put weight onto his opponent in a different way that Gordon does it. Kaynan's much more upright, Gordon's more lean forward. But I think like Kaynan's maintenance there so that he doesn't end up in tricky positions on the legs was really, really good. What do you think about his jiu-jitsu that we saw?
Yeah, very patient. Like I said in the last video, that 10-minute period really favours his guard passing style. I always bring this up with the ACCC refs, but looking at some of the other matches, like Elder Cruz, Taylor Pearman coming to mind, where Elder didn't get any penalties and he didn't engage or really try to pass at all. And then looking back at the match with Kaynan and Craig, where Kaynan was like constantly putting pressure on Craig and constantly looking to pass, the amount of penalties he got in that match is absolutely ridiculous, and he didn't change his style really at all. Now in this ADCC, and I even heard the commentators, I can't remember exactly what match it was, but Kaynan was doing what he always does, just constantly looking to pass, but at his pace. And the commentators were making comments saying that, oh, you'll need to watch out that he doesn't start getting warnings and penalties for this, which I just think is ridiculous. Like, that's his passing pace. He's constantly working to pass and put pressure on, and he's amazing at it. The fact that they were even contemplating him getting penalties for that is quite ridiculous in my opinion. But yeah, his passing was amazing.
I know we're not talking about the 88 division yet, but just because you mentioned Taylor against Elder, like, I get both sides here. It's like, on the one hand, it's frustrating if you're the bottom player and you can't get anything going, but on the other hand, you've chosen to go there, right? So, like, you've got to play an offensive guard. So if you're not threatening wrestle-ups or you're not prepared to go back to your feet, especially in the no points period, just to change the dynamic to try and get something going, because you can't rely on the refs to give out penalties ultimately, even if you think it's justified that they should. So
yeah, I think that's fair that you can't rely on the refs, but my personal opinion on that is unless the rules or judging specifically say that if you pull guard, the onus is on you to come up, I think the onus is on the person on top, because they can walk into the guard, they can start engaging to pass, whereas on your back, you're waiting for them to engage. But if a specific competition or rule set states that specifically, I think that's fine. I think that point you made about not relying on the judges or refs is a good point as well. But unless something is specifically stated, I always feel like it's the guy on top's job to do that.
I think the onus is on both guys to create action. There's nothing in the rules that says, like, stalling is the responsibility of the top guy to not allow it to happen, whatever, right? So I think it takes two to tango. I want to see the bottom guy going forward and the top guy going forward. And again, like, I think even if we go with what you're saying there, which is fine, again, it's like, if you're that athlete and it's not happening, you have to do things to change the dynamic. Like, you have to read the situation. If you realize that, like, I'm sitting here, if you're playing another sport, there are days where you just think, the ref's not going to give us anything here. Like, I keep doing this, or the opponent keeps doing this and getting away with it. Like, we're not getting that today. So we have to change our strategy, you know?
Yeah, I agree. The best guys will get that done regardless.
So we'll go back to we'll move on to the 88 division in a minute. I think, the other big talking point coming out of the under-99 division was Nicholas Menegali, who tried to wrestle up on Michael Pixley, got an overhook and thrown to the ground with the overhook, landed on his shoulder, seems to have done pretty bad damage to his arm. Fantastic counter throw by Michael Pixley, which, is one of his strong suits, that kind of throw. We've seen him utilize it over and over again. I think with Menegali, on the one hand, I understand that his personality can rub people up the wrong way. On the other hand, I don't enjoy people being happy that Menegali lost when he got injured the way he did. I think it's okay to say, okay, Menegali said he was going to go 8-0 and he didn't. But when you see stuff like people sort of reveling in his misfortune, I find that a little bit hard given what happened to him. But I think ultimately, Menegali saying he would, posting before that he basically won both divisions and then going out early on. I think maybe it's a bit of a or it could be a bit of a reality check for this kind of persona that he's trying to project.
Bit of karma as well, perhaps, for being that arrogant.
Perhaps. Now, if you allow me to link 99 and 88, I'd say Giancarlo Bodoni's victory in 88 shows that you don't have to have that sort of arrogant character from New Wave to be a success from that team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, but just to kind of close out the Menegali Pixley, I will say credit to Pixley in that match, because before that he was winning the match anyway. Menegali tried to wrestle with him, he got thrown a couple times with that overhook Karayagoshi, so it wasn't just the one where he landed on the shoulder. So I think full credit to Mike Pixley, even though Menegali got injured in that match. And as well, like you're saying with the reality check thing, I think it's also a reality check of you've been doing no-gi for a couple of years, you've been wrestling a lot, and wrestling's been working really well for you in some matches, but when you then come up against Pixley, who I know he's not D1 or wasn't D1, but I think maybe D2, if not D3, he's been wrestling all of his life, and then the wrestling's not going well for you, just maybe be a bit humble about that, and you've got a better guard than him. I know he played guard for a little bit and wasn't having anything really happen with that, but I feel like the odds of Menegali from the last ADCC beating Pixley were actually a lot higher, even though all the strides that he's made, just because that Menegali was willing to play guard a lot more, and we know that he's got a world-class guard, so I think as well, he's not going to be the best wrestler of every competition he enters. Yeah, he could have done a Ty Rotolo and just been F it, I'm going to do it anyway and see how it goes, and he managed to come out in that match, but I think it would do him well to be a bit more versatile and be willing to play guard against some of these guys.
And Bodoni?
Yeah, Bodoni had a great run. He had a very exciting match in the final, but leading up to that, he had some tough matches, but overall, he got the job done every time. Looked great when he got to the back, looked great when he got on top of people as well, but he had quite a tough run, and then in the final, he was definitely losing the no points period. Not that that really matters in the grand scheme of things, and it almost played into his favour because it looked like J-Rod spent a lot of his energy putting it on Giancarlo in the first half, taking him down and passing his guard, and then when it came down to it, he looked a little bit gassed, but I think that kind of plays into the veteran experience of Giancarlo coming from winning ADCC last time around. But yeah, he looked great.
And it's a big ask to go back to back, and
especially in a division like that,
and especially because I don't think he was the overwhelming favourite last time, so he sort of broke into that upper echelon of gold medal winners and contenders at the ADCC last time out, so to come back and really cement his status there this time around was a great achievement from Giancarlo. One thing I loved about his bottom game kind of is his framing, his turning, his ability not to get pinned flat, his coming back up on singles and doubles, and I thought he did really, really well there, particularly against J-Rod, because with J-Rod, I think there's such a fine line between committing and overcommitting, and that'll always be part of J-Rod's game, but as he gets more experienced, he might be able to walk that line a bit better. But like you said, I think in the early part of the match, he perhaps exerted too much energy, which when Bodoni started to turn the tables a little bit and put weight on him later on, was difficult. And then even in some of the exchanges, like, I just think he went like a little bit too far, and although Bodoni was framing and controlling the distance well, he was able to like sort of get safe in the position. So but like a great performance from J-Rod to get to the final, and plenty of excitement from him along the way. Perhaps this is a good time just before we'll do that next, talking about some of the older guys, because we'll get into the 77 division where one of them really shone. So want to say something?
Yeah, on that final, I think J-Rod's got really good dynamic passing around the outsides, but when you've got someone like Giancarlo that's so good at turtling and coming on up on single legs, you either have to spend a lot of time working on solidifying your pass from those like around the leg positions and really work on putting weight on whatever like shoulder he's trying to come up on. So I think that's maybe something he can develop. If not, then I think you need to try prioritize pinning the upper body before you actually pass. So whether that's like body locks, half guard pass, and high tripod. So I think those things would have served him well. However, I think a big dynamic in that match was the fact that Giancarlo was a lot bigger, stronger, more physical, and Jay was a lot younger, scrappier, and faster. So maybe it would have been a bit more difficult for him to pass with the like the body lock passing, which I know he tried a couple times. So just some observations, but still a great performance from J-Rod. And I think with a bit more experience and just knowing how to pace himself in that match, that was a very winnable match for him.
Okay, well, keep on that theme of experience, because we're going to enter the 77 division, which was won by Mica Galvao against Wagner Rocha in the final, who's very experienced. And through the event, we saw the likes of Cyborg, Rafael Lovato, and Wagner Rocha, among some others, have really, really good runs. And I noted, as I was watching this, I think athleticism and experience in the ADCC rule set are two huge factors. And I think we live in a day and age where it's possible to retain some sort of athleticism later in your years, especially if you're in the upper weight classes. Plus, you can't buy the experience. So I think all those guys used their experience really well in matches. And I think as we get into some of the lighter weight classes and the women's divisions, we did see some of the younger competitors make mistakes that cost them pretty big. But to focus more on the 77 division, Mica Galvao completed the Super Grand Slam, every IBJJF major this year, and the ADCC title, which means he's the second man to achieve that behind Cabrinha, and now the youngest to achieve it. So what did you think about Mica at the ADCC?
Yeah, like you said, with the experience, it's a wild sport when we've got the two guys in the final 22 years apart in age. It's very interesting. But yeah, Mica got the job done. He won, but despite winning ADCC gold, I think I don't know if his stock dropped so much, but he definitely lost a lot of aura. That's the most human I've seen him look. Last time around, obviously, he got submitted by Cade, but Cade is Cade, and that was just a one match. However, in this event, by three different guys, he got things happen to him, like he got taken down, he got his guard passed, he got mounted, he got submitted by three guys in his weight division. So even though he got the job done, he got the gold, I think he definitely looks a lot more human and a lot more beatable coming forward. And I think people are going to be less, I don't know if people were scared going into the match with Mica, but we certainly talked about that aspect of it. And I think that'll definitely be less of a thing going forward, and people will be viewing it as a lot more of a winnable match for people. But yeah, he got the job done regardless. And throughout the year, that's like an amazing performance, winning all those gi titles and then the ADCC as well. So good job to him.
Can I just do a quick grammar check there? Because it sounded like you said he got submitted by 3 guys in his weight division. And that's not what you said.
He did.
You said there were a bunch of things happened, including one time he got submitted by one of the guys that were in the division.
I said he got those things happened to him by 3 guys that were in his weight division.
Yes. That's what I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, Duarte submitted him in the absolute, which wasn't in the weight division. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got gold. But Dante is still a 77 guy, so all the things that happened to him, like I said, the guard pass, the mount, the submission, they were all done by guys in his weight class. It wasn't like Kaynan was doing this to him in the absolute or anything like that.
I just wanted to clarify that before it gets clipped and put on a video, because then that wouldn't be the first time your voice had been clipped off late and put on a video. So
yeah.
Shout out Lucas Kennard for a tremendous performance that I don't think anyone, including us, saw coming at CGI. But keeping with the theme of 77, I think ultimately in the final, although Wagner had a great run, Mica ultimately ended up just a step quicker than Wagner and managed to get the better of some exchanges near the end to take the title. I think it was just a step too far for Wagner playing against someone as dynamic and as good at jiu-jitsu as Mica, but he just seemed like just a few exchanges, managed to get ahead and get the victory. What did you think about Wagner's run?
Yeah, Wagner kind of did what Wagner does. He just gets the win by any means necessary. Whether that was winning by 2 points, whether that was winning by decision, he just got the job done up until the final. I had Wagner after Mica and Dante as being like the most likely guy I thought to do well or go far, just because he's proven that time and time again, and the first time we've seen him competing at this weight class in a while. But yeah, Wagner just does what he does, very experienced, he just gets the win by any means, so I wasn't surprised to see him do that.
Go on, say it. Where did you want to put Wagner on the tier list?
I wanted to put him A, but Ross talks me out of it.
And where did he end up?
B tier.
Okay.
Top of B.
What did you think of the semi-final between Mica and PJ Barch?
Yeah, it was very close. In the regulation, I think PJ took him down, and then towards the very end of that, he passed his guard and mounted him, but it wasn't for long enough to get points, so they went to an overtime, and then at the end of the overtime, Mica did the same thing to him in the fact that he took his back, but it wasn't long enough to get points. So they're supposed to judge the match holistically over the regulation and the overtime. I do think, though, a lot of the judges fall into the trap of recency bias and do tend to look at the overtime a little more than the whole match. In general, me personally, I probably would have given it to PJ. I think what he did in the regulation was more impressive than what Mica did in the overtime, but you can make arguments either way, but for me personally, I would have given it to PJ in that match.
Yeah, what I wrote down in my notes was, did Mica pull it out right at the end? So, I thought PJ did tremendously. That said, like, he had a very close quarterfinal, which kind of shows the depth of this division against Mateusz Szyzinski. And it was awesome to see Mateusz wrestle up off a bolo attempt. And that's something we've chatted about in some of our preview videos with the guys that are guard heavy and leg lock heavy. It's like, can they add this wrestle up element to their game as well as the threat of going on the legs and taking the back? So that was something I was happy to see from Mateusz. Just want to throw that in as we're talking about the jiu-jitsu that we saw on display. Just on the rules and the way ADCC is judged, I think the Elijah Dorsey v Wagner Osha match is interesting from that perspective. And you talking about recency bias, because I think the only difference between them in the match, I expected another period of overtime to come, or a period of overtime to come, and yeah, I think Wagner just pushing forward in the last minute or two, and kind of like walking Elijah down, gave him the decision in the eyes of the judges. I don't think that was enough to win the match, but they did. So it just shows the importance of pushing forward right at the end. Yeah. Okay, good. 66. Won by Baby Shark again. Beat Diego Pato in the final. I know you've got quite a lot of thoughts on this, so I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, Pato looked really good from a certain point of view in the regulation. He managed to pass, get on top against Baby Shark and pass his guard and looked really good. Surprised me a lot. They didn't show up at the time, so I was wondering, like, is he done some sort of loophole or whatever? But he pulled guard twice in the regulation, then it turned out that the points were put on the board for the 2 penalties. I just thought, coming from him, such a seasoned competitor that's done ACCC before, and coming from that camp with the coaches that he's got and they're being so strategically minded, I was very surprised to see him make those mistakes. I think it's fair to call that a mistake in the final to pull guard. You've got other options. I'm sure he could have baited Baby Shark into taking him down to get the action going without a penalty being awarded. I'm sure you would think that they would have worked, especially with Pato being primarily a guard player. You'd think they would have worked strategies to get to the bottom position. Things like going for a takedown and then turtling for 3 seconds to get on bottom. Quite a common way of doing it as well. So you'd think they would have worked those strategies. So I was very surprised from him just to see him pull guard twice. I don't know if it maybe got to him a bit too much in the finals and just a bit of a lapse of judgment, because I thought they would have prepared very well for that. Thought it was a very winnable match for Pato. I think in the overtime, no, not the overtime, sorry, because there was penalties. Towards the end of the regulation, I think he became maybe a little bit desperate, and that opened up some opportunities for Baby Shark, which he took advantage of and passed his guard and finished with an arm triangle. So very impressive final from Baby Shark to add on to the rest of his performance being very impressive as well.
Yeah, Baby Shark, so good all around, tactically way ahead of his years, uses his experience that he's gained really well, and passed with a high head and arm control, which is like you're saying, like sometimes, well, particularly against guys like Diego Pato, like you want to lock in the upper body first before you're going for the pass all the time. We've seen Joseph Chen use the tripod, which is different to how Baby Shark passed, but ultimately, like, you're getting the same kind of thing. Like, you're getting those shoulders pinned flat as you pass through. So I thought Baby Shark did really well to get those grips set before he took the pass. And when the pass was there, it was done. No hope of Pato like scrambling and engaging legs or whatever. You agree with that assessment of Baby Shark performance? That's good. And a couple of shout-outs in this division. So Owen Jones from the UK had a couple of highlight reel moments. So let's give some props to Owen. The win against Gabriel Souza in particular was huge for him. Although, as we talk about experience playing a role, I thought his strategy of coming out against Pato and going for Pato's foot or leg and putting himself in a position where Pato could get his foot or leg was kind of not the best strategy in that match. What do you think?
Well, I think the sequence that ended it up with him getting foot locked wasn't from that. It was from Pato pass, and then he had his foot under the armpit, which, again, you could argue that isn't somewhere you would want to have your foot against Pato. But yeah, he came out and double pulled with him off the bat. I think, though, to be fair to Owen, I think breaking on to that level, having the first 2 matches go the way they did, and having Owen being such a confident guy in his own abilities, he's probably thinking, like, you know, I'm there, I'm the best guy in the world, I'll go exchange leg locks with Diego Pato. That's what I'd imagine Owen Jones's mindset would have been, and if he had been the one to submit Pato from there, we would have been having a different conversation. So yeah, you can argue that maybe the experience and strategy wasn't the best, but I think, to be fair to him, he was just ready to take on anyone in his A game and just give it his best shot, and that worked out amazing for him taking out one of the favourites, Sousa, in the first round, and then absolutely smoking Gearbeck in the second round as well, which, if he has to do trials again, puts him in good stead, because he smoked Gearbeck, and Gearbeck's one of the toughest guys in that division for European trials, and he's already beaten Ash as well. So
one of my favourite matches from the weekend, just while we're here, was Gearbeck against Dorian, because we've seen advancements in Dorian's style of passing and that rumble passing becoming a thing that a lot of guys, especially in the lighter weight classes, are utilising. And I thought Gearbeck did a tremendous job controlling both of Dorian's legs, using different limbs at different times to achieve that, but it just gave some insight as to like what you can do against that style of passing, which can like really throw you off your game when you face it. Obviously, Gearbeck is also a very, very good wrestler, which helps in these situations, because I think if you're just willing to play like on your back against the rumble passing game, it's going to be difficult. But like, I just found it interesting, much like I find Felipe Pena's ability to use the bear trap, etc. interesting. Just ways to tie up people using their legs that are kind of like different to what we have typically seen a lot of, starting to become utilised. So that was an enjoyable match for me. Now, women's divisions. Let's just start talking about Adele Fornarino.
yeah, so we'll get into the absolutes, but we can't really talk about her. We'll get into the absolutes in another video, but we can't really talk about her without mentioning that she had 6 matches overall. I think 4 submissions out of those 6. So in her run in the under 55 kilos, she got a decision win over Mayusa Bastos, and then she beat Jasmine Rocha with a really nice arm bar off of a pass. She looked pretty deep with like an under kind of knee cut style pass, and Jasmine's foot was just wedged in there, but instead of going for the pass, she spun around and managed to get an arm bar off of that, which was really cool. And in the final, another really cool submission against Bianca Basilio. She got to close guard, which is one of her best positions, and she got an overhook on her and managed to kind of slip the elbow inside and drop back in a mirror lock. So that's a very cool submission to see. Looks like Bianca was a bit unsure and a bit flustered and quite desperate to get out of that position. She might have been better just driving her back to the mat, but Adele took advantage of that fully and managed to get the sub off of that. So awesome run from her. We'll get more into the absolute as well, but probably the best female performance ever in ADCC, given it's the first time they've had an opportunity to win the absolutes as well. Super technical game that I will definitely be studying and taking stuff from. So overall, amazing performance from her in her weight class.
Agreed. Under 65, we saw a different way to win. We saw Ana Carolina Vieira take the title. What did you think of her performance?
Yeah, similar to Wagner, and the fact that just got the job done, found a way to win in every match. I think she won her first 2 matches by decision and then beat Helena Krivar 5-0 in the final. I think that's how all the matches went. Yeah, just saw a very experienced performance from her. Like I say, with Wagner getting the job done regardless. So we had her as not like a clear favourite, but definitely one of the top ones to watch in that division, and she proved us right with that. So a great job done by her.
From Helena's point of view, I thought it was interesting to see her go up against a veteran with a lot of physicality, and that's what I've been waiting to see Helena play against, because generally she's done very, very well and scored a lot of submissions. And then in this EDCC, she had matches against Aurélie Laverne and Brianna Saint-Marie, who are younger grapplers, who she did well against. Although I think at the end of the match against Brianna Saint-Marie, Brianna made a couple of errors that allowed Helena to score. She just risked too much late on, and I think ended up getting her back taken. But yeah, I thought Anna was very, very measured and experienced against Helena in the final. Very disciplined at controlling the legs, etc. And yeah, produced like a real kind of veteran performance in like a total complimentary way of using that word to take the title. And in the over 65 division, we had Rafaela Guedes come through to take the title. What did you think of her performance?
Yeah, she looked great overall as well. Very physical, very good positionally. Managed to get a nice guillotine against Kendall in the semi-finals, and then Kendall won the bronze medal match after that, and then she won by 2 points in both her quarter-final and final match. So wasn't surprised to see her go all the way. She was one that I was looking at to go all the way. She's been around for a long time, and like I say, very physical, good positional game, very experienced as well. So not surprised at all to see her go all the way in that division.
Good. Well, that concludes our chat about the weight classes in the ADCC. Please let us know your thoughts on any of the matches we've discussed or any other talking points you think we should have mentioned. And in our next and last recap video of the ADCC, we're going to get into the absolute divisions and the super fights and anything else we can think of that's notable.